Hi, my name is Kara Anderson, and today we're going to be making skirt steak roll-ups. This is a recipe that I started making with my son. When he started kindergarten, I realized very quickly how little time I had after school between soccer practice and homework and dance. I was finding myself going through the drive-thru a lot, and I thought I need to figure out some way to get a hot meal on the table on a Wednesday. So I developed this recipe to prep ahead, keep in the fridge, and then cook off whenever we're ready for it. So I'm going to show you how to make it today, and hopefully it helps save you some time during the week as well. We're going to start with a skirt steak. I've got this beautiful skirt steak that's nice and clean. You can see he's a nice thick piece of meat. We're going to make 4 portions out of this. So cut him in the middle, and then one more time. And then these are really thick. So what we're going to do is we're going to pound them out so they're nice and thin, and we're going to roll some vegetables inside of them. So for the pounding out portion, this is the part that my son loves to help with. We're going to use some plastic wrap on our kitchen counter. And I'm just going to use a wet paper towel and rub it across my counter here so that it's a little bit damp, and that's going to make sure our plastic sticks to it instead of, attacking us or sticking to our clothes. Nice flat surface here. So we're going to give our steak down on the plastic. We're going to give them a little bit of room around them so that we can pound them out and they can kind of spread out as we're pounding so that it makes a nice flat surface. Once we've got them placed on our counter, we're going to do some more plastic wrap over the top. I'm going to use my rolling pin and just pound them out with this. You could also I've used a full bottle of wine before. Nice heavy object to pound them out with. If your kids are helping you, I wouldn't give them a full bottle of wine to pound things out on your kitchen counter with. That seems like a disaster. But we're just going to lay these out with the grain of the meat going the same direction on all 4. And we're going to pound against the grain of the meat. So our grain's going this way. You can see our nice little stripies here. So I'm going to pound and kind of put pressure on them the opposite way, and that's going to help them spread out a little bit faster. All right, so we're looking for about a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch thickness for these guys, but really what's most important is making sure the pieces are all nice and even and that they're all 4 about the same thickness. That way everything cooks at the same time. You don't end up with one end of your roll-up that's medium rare and one end that's extra well done. All right, so all 4 of our pieces are about the same thickness, which is what we're going for. We're going to pull off this top layer of plastic, and we're going to go ahead and season them at this point. So we're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to these. We're going to season both sides. That way when we roll them up, our vegetables are going to be on the inside, and our meat's going to be seasoned all the way around. And we'll flip. And salt this side too. And then now that these are seasoned, we're going to put these back in the fridge. We're going to get our veggies ready, and then we'll put them all together at the end when our veggies are cooked. And I'm just going to use my plastic wrap here. Save that guy. And now I've got nothing to clean up, all ready to go. So the first veggie that we're going to cut is going to be onions. I'm using a yellow onion because it's what I always have at home. If you have red onions, use those. If you don't have onions at home, you probably just don't ever cook at home, so you're probably not going to make this recipe. You could use shallots too if you got that, if you're real fancy. I don't have those though. And we're going to make nice thick slices. And I've got my knife at an angle so that as we slice down, it stays the same thickness. And then once I get to the middle, I'm going to turn him and go back the other way. This is a very strong onion. We're going to get really emotional on our veggies over here. Whew, that one was strong. They say if the onion's strong, you can push your tongue up against the roof of your mouth and it'll keep you from crying, but apparently that doesn't work very well. It's not working for me. All right, the next thing we're going to cut is our bell peppers. I've got a red one and a green one here. We're going to take all 4 sides off of the bell pepper. So we're going to go straight down the side. And then we're just kind of roll them around on our board. Once the sides are off, we're going to disconnect the cage from the bottom, and then we're going to throw this whole piece away. And then for these guys, we're going to take out any of our rib pieces, which is this white part here, and get rid of those. So we're gonna do nice even strips here. We're gonna add a couple carrots next. I'm gonna use 2 carrots here. These are nice big carrots. If you had smaller ones, obviously use 3 or 4 to make up so you have enough sticks to fill each of the roll-up. And then what we're gonna do is cut these into about 4-inch pieces. We're gonna cut our carrot in half from here. So we're gonna put knife in the middle, a finger on each side. We're gonna go right down. So now we have 2 flat surfaces, and then we're gonna cut these in half again. So a nice little wedge of a carrot. Carrots are a very hard vegetable, but they have a lot of water and a lot of sugar in them, so they're gonna cook pretty quickly when we saute. So we're gonna do them a little bit bigger, that way they still hold the shape, and you can see them inside of our roll-up. So I'm just gonna repeat that process with the rest of my carrots here. And then we're gonna do a butternut squash as well. We're gonna peel it, and then we're gonna cut it into sticks the same size as our carrots. Now the bulb is really delicious, but it's just really hard to get the size that we want, so we're not gonna use that today. I'm gonna separate them like so. I'm gonna save this guy for this recipe, and then I've already got the oven on, so I'm gonna cut this guy in half. We're gonna pull the seeds out. I'll give him some olive oil and some salt and pepper, and then we're gonna throw them in the oven and eat him as a snack. I'll set that aside. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the tip off here too. We're not gonna use the stem, and it's just gonna make peeling this a lot harder. So I'm gonna get rid of that while I've got it. And then we're just gonna peel this. We're gonna cut it in half, straight down the middle. So we're gonna cut ours into nice, thick slices. And then once we got our thick slices, we're gonna lay these down and we'll cut them into strips about the same size as our carrot. And we'll add these to our pile of veggies to cook. And then our last vegetable is gonna be green onions. We're gonna use 4 green onions. We're making 4 roll-ups today. The first thing with the green onions we're gonna do is line them all up. We're gonna cut our roots off here. And we're gonna cut the tip off. So we're just gonna trim that off so they're nice and clean. They all look really pretty. And then we're just gonna cut our green onions straight in half. So when you buy a green onion, they give you the entire green onion. Make sure you use the entire thing, it's delicious. And then when we put them in the roll-up, we'll just match a couple top pieces with the bottom pieces straight inside, and then we can use everything that we paid for. All right, so now that all of my veggies are prepped, we're gonna go over here to our saute pan that we've got hot with a little bit of olive oil and butter. We're gonna get these cooked off, and then we'll build our roll-ups. I've got my pan preheated. Medium high is what you're going for. And then I'm gonna add a combination of butter and oil. I like to use butter and oil together when I'm sauteing vegetables. I think that the butter adds a nice flavor, but if you put too much butter in, you're gonna get burnt butter or too many brown butter bits. So I like to do a little combination. So we're gonna let that get a little warm and melty. We're gonna saute our vegetables in stages. If you put everything in the pan at once, then they're gonna cook at different times, and you're gonna end up with raw butternut squash or super soft, mushy onions and peppers, and that's not what we want. So once our butter is melted, we're gonna add our onions first. And then we're immediately gonna salt and pepper those guys. So you wanna season at every single stage. That way we end up with really nicely seasoned vegetables at the end by building that seasoning throughout the cooking process. All right, so those are becoming a little translucent around the edges. We're gonna add our next vegetables. So the way you wanna do it is you wanna start with the things that are gonna take the longest to cook. So the next thing we're gonna add is gonna be our butternut squash down inside of our pan. We're leaving our onions in so they continue to cook, and they're gonna give some flavor to our squash and the rest of our ingredients. And then we're gonna season again. Since we added another ingredient, we're gonna add another layer of seasoning. All right, we're gonna let our squash and onions keep cooking in here, and we're gonna add our next vegetable, which is gonna be our peppers. And I'm gonna add a combination of the green and the red bell peppers. It's gonna seem like your pan is getting very full, and it is, that's fine. We're gonna add another layer of salt and pepper with our peppers. Keep seasoning as we go, so everything is really nice and seasoned throughout the whole cooking process. And then we're gonna add our carrot sticks next. So a nice big handful of carrots is gonna go in. And again, salt, pepper. I'm gonna add a tiny bit more butter with the carrots. This is gonna start letting out a little bit of water, which is helping with the steam. but I want to make sure everything's coated so it doesn't stick and doesn't start to scorch. So now that all of our vegetables are done cooking, we're gonna bring them over and build our wraps. So we've got our skirt steak that we portioned, pounded out, and seasoned earlier, and we're gonna start building them one at a time. So our first piece is gonna go down flat on our surface, and then we're gonna add our vegetables, kind of off to one side. I start on the left side. We're gonna add, we've got a carrot, a squash, let's do a green, let's do a red, and a couple of onions. So I've got my green onions from earlier that we didn't cook off because they're gonna cook plenty in the roll-up. So we're gonna add a top and a bottom to each one of these guys. And then we're just gonna roll our steak right around the meat like that. So you can see I kind of put them down to one side so that the veggies stick out of our roll-up here. I just think it looks really pretty. That's the way I like to present it. And then we're gonna layer them, or we're gonna put them all snuggled in together in our casserole dish here. When you do that, you're gonna put this seam side from the roll-up at the bottom of the pan. And that's gonna keep it from popping open as it cooks. So we're gonna do that same process with all of them. You wanna use a dish that makes it kind of snug. That way they're less likely to pop open during the cooking process. And you can see these guys fit really nice and tight in here, so they're gonna stay nice and snug. I'm just gonna go ahead and toss the rest of our veggies in here. Toss them around so that they can cook with our meat. All right, all the veggies in. Perfect. So at this point, if I was doing this as a make-ahead recipe, so if it's Sunday and I'm making this for Tuesday or Wednesday, I would just cover this with plastic wrap and put it in my refrigerator until I was ready to bake it off. Then when you unwrap it and pull it out, you're gonna preheat your oven to 400 degrees, and then we're just gonna finish our sauce for this. We're gonna add 1 can of diced tomatoes with the liquid that's in the can, right over the top. Okay, so we've got our can of tomatoes on here. If you're gonna use salsa, it would be about a cup of salsa. And then we're gonna take our pepper jack cheese right on top, and then we're gonna bake this in a 400-degree oven. So I've got my oven ready, and we're just gonna stick this in. The important thing to remember is the last 2 to 3 minutes of your cooking time, you're gonna switch from your oven to your broiler setting. We really want that cheese on top to get nice and brown, and ours is ready, so we're gonna pull it out. Yum. So you can see our broiler did a great job here. We've got nice brown cheese, we've got lots of liquid and sauce on the side, and our meat is nice and tender, cooked all the way through. Pull our piece out here. Yum. And put them down on our plate. This looks great. I'm gonna pull some of these veggies from the side too. And we're all set, ready to go. All we just need to do is serve this with a little bit of rice and then slice it up. So to get this recipe and others like it, head over to kansasbeef.org.